Welcome to my garden. I was remembering this morning when I was 5, 6 years old. I used to sneak into my sister's room. She's older than me, and I was curious why she was keeping this pile of magazines. And I would also look at the walls. Like she had posters of the important people of back then, the 80s, the early 90s. And I used to go through the magazines and stuff, and it wasn't my thing, but I was just curious. Later came my turn to collect things of interest, right? And I started collecting my own things that culture had to provide, music, cinema, um, art. Mm, I used to get these tapes, and I would wait in the radio listening to uh, people who asked for a specific music, and I would wait and record the song of my favorite bands and stuff of the 80s and the 90s. That's how I created my first playlists. I used to check as well the newspaper. I think it was every Wednesday you could check what was going on next weekend, if there was any interesting film or TV series. Yeah, that's how we used to check these things and keep a schedule. You know, most of the times I was unable to watch because they were too late in the evening. So I had to get up early in the morning, so I just couldn't watch most of the things. Everything was filled with, soap operas and the news and whatnot, and reality shows. Interesting stuff. TV series and films was, after 11 or midnight. Sometimes in the weekend it was possible, right? In the weekends it was possible to watch, and cassettes, VHS, magazines. There was tons and tons of magazines and tons of subjects. It was amazing. Um, and it was a time everything was analog, and the market was booming because this opened the window to many, many types of businesses, in culture. Yeah, I still remember looking at these pictures. I did collages sometimes. I matched some stuff from here and there to make a collage. But I think that you noticed that everybody had this bright, face, extremely gorgeous and bright, and good skin, good teeth. Everybody was amazing. Um, Compared to nowadays, if you look at the stars nowadays, they are all depressed, emaciated, gaunt, and ugly, honestly. And you're like, ugh. They are like androgynous or something. But back in those days, in the 80s and early 90s, everybody was very good in their skin, and that sold products. So, so I also started having posters in my room about my bands and films and whatnot, and always, on the lookout for it was like a treasure hunt sometimes when you find that picture, or you found about that band or whatever, or that movie in that magazine or something. You're like, wow, I never seen in this angle. It's just so cool. And you collected tapes, and then came the CDs and the DVDs, and I still have some that I collected. I don't watch them anymore. I don't even have a player. I have to get one. I have a bunch of DVDs. I have nothing to play them. Um, and so we kind of collect these things. And when it's analog, when it's in paper or whatever, it opens the market. There's demand. And I suppose there was a lot more money to be made when it was analog, when it was in a CD, in a tape, in a magazine. When it went to the digital, I suppose lots of people just lost their businesses. When it went digital. So culture was booming in the 80s and the 90s, and when the digital happened, culture kind of sank. There was no much money to be made in culture. Even films, they stopped being produced in VHS and CD. That was the most income they would make, companies and actors. It was from the hard copy. Now there's no hard copies made, and so you can see immediately the side effects. We fall into a binary, I would say, in digital era. In They only make money by polarizing the audience and not feeding them, culture. They feed them, for instance, what's the current thing of the day. They invent every 4 years. They come up with a current thing. You know, they come up with something that is um, to do with the environment or to do with um, activism. It doesn't matter what kind of activism. The binary us versus them, protect the minorities because they are oppressed, and it's a us versus them type of culture that we are going through in these past 20 years since the digital hit, because that's the only money to be made nowadays. It has regressed from a more complex and interesting culture. It has got regressed into a binary, into a digital ones and zero. And they know that to make money is to appeal to emotions, and the us versus them mentality, to activism, and to weird, diets and whatnot. And I remember, seeing on television activism, and it was like, wow, what are those people doing? They were on boats, painting graffiti on the oil rigs and stuff, and I was like, what am I looking at here? These people are crazy. I thought to myself, they don't have anything better to do. Who's financing them? That's, immediately the words, because people have to eat. Where did they get the boats? How do they get there? Of course, later we understand that everything is, orchestrated. These activism, it's all a coup de propaganda. So once upon a time, you had bands, you had actors and whatnot. The VIPs, the sexy and attractive people that just caught the eye of the photographer. That was good for the magazine. That was good. You know, those people, they lived a good life. They made a lot of money, and everybody made money with them, along with them. And but nowadays, it's completely different. Since it's digital, the VIPs are kind of forced by contract to give their opinions about the current thing. Making them complete fools of themselves. But that's probably in the contract. So when they start talking about the activism and the current thing and politics and whatnot, who cares? Yeah, but that's how they are trying to sell some products, you see. That's how they are trying to make some money. It's you see, culture needs investment, and most, magazines, newspaper. I mean, everything is going down with the event of the internet. Everything is going down, and now cinema and everything related to cartoons and whatever, it's mediocre. Everything is mediocre, ugly, because they are trying to market to the current thing. They are trying to market to the binary. to the us versus them, completely, completely wrong, this strategy. Whoever, adopted this strategy, this marketing, it's completely wrong. They are going broke, no doubt. uh, but then again, culture, mainstream culture is really mediocre at the moment because there's just no money to be made. Almost, it's just money of the activism that people are making some. So music is mediocre. Oh, they destroyed music when they stopped producing CDs. Music just disappeared some 20 years ago, and cinema is going the same way. It will fade into mediocrity because I guess we just have to content ourselves with what we have from the past. There was also a golden age of orchestra, symphony around the 17th and 18th century. Then it's gone. Now there's no new things being created. No new things. There was a push and investment back then. Uh, but then again, people change. I suppose with the event of the electricity, at the turning of the industrial revolution, and electricity and the lightning bulb, humans changed a lot. Before that, I think humans was a lot more spiritual, a lot more concentrated in their art and in their spirituality. So they were able to produce music and manuscripts and books, and way more, deep and interesting than nowadays. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, I think human humans in general have been degenerating. You know, degenerating. Now we are reaching it the peak with this bullshit of the digitalization. It's the peak of human de-evolution, I suppose. You know, we are heading towards very dark, times, similar to the Dark Age. It's going to be a period there. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing significant is going to happen. Since, for instance, the event of the electricity, nothing else important has ever developed. They've been focused on this thing called electricity and technology, and everything has already been invented. And now they are just putting it smaller and smaller, so it can fit inside a small chip. That's the only innovation they've been doing in these past 200 years. It's just, the first computers used to be the size of a building. Now they can fit in your pocket. There've been, shrinking technology because everything has already been invented, but there's been no innovation whatsoever. So, the artificial light, I think it alters our state of being. It alters our state of conscious. These artificial lights and the magnetic fields caused by electricity, and of course the frequencies that we are being bombarded from the 1 to the 5G, and I think it's altering us, not for the best. So yeah, well, now culture is on the pocket. Culture is passed through the obsidian mirror. Everybody's got one glued to their hand. If they go into the car, they have a big one right in the center of the car, another obsidian mirror, so you don't miss a thing, and you can scroll and listen and be connected all times to this thing. And the culture now is passed through this medium, and this medium only. Once upon a time, you had it in your hands. It was like a treasure. You found a treasure. That time You waited so long for that magazine, and you could held it in your hand and bring it home, you know, or that CD, and you would listen to it times and times again. I've watched The Lord of the Rings so many times since it came out in DVD. It's probably the film that I watched the most. Uh, well, not in these past years. I need to get a DVD player. You know, I bought a computer the other day, and it doesn't have a disc. You can't put discs in it. And I'm like, it's pointless. This thing, pointless. Everything is through the cable now. Doesn't make any sense. They don't want us to have the physical copy of things anymore, and it doesn't make any sense. Economically wise, it doesn't. Yeah, but the purpose is not economics. Uh, Tyranny is the purpose. Anyway, I think I'm gonna shut up now. Have a nice day.